In this video, you're going to see a combination of videos from two different Jeeps. This one has a stock crossbar below the transmission, so super easy to remove. There's a total of 3 18mm bolts. The other one I'm going to be using also has a aftermarket skid plate under the transmission and engine. That one's a bit harder to get to, but it has to be removed to be able to service the transmission and get to the oil filter.
What's really interesting is when you look at the finish of this pan versus the Dorman one that I installed on the other Jeep. So hard to tell that they've both been underneath vehicles for roughly the same amount of time. This one's getting really rotten. There's oil soaking through it. This one, still great. This is because of something else that I'll be resolving after. So if you ever have a problem with your pan and you have to change it, make sure you get yourself one that's galvanized steel so that it'll last. The reason that the oil pan on these things can corrode if you don't have the right type is because of that black drain at the top. That's for the AC. And where does it drip down? Drips on the side of the transmission, gets on the side, eventually works its way down to the bottom. So if you don't have a galvanized steel pan, it's a question of when before they rot out, even if you don't play with them off-road. So here we have the crusty old oil pan. It was very crunchy when I was pushing underneath it under the vehicle. Reminds me of what the one that I replaced in 2018 looked like. I added this one because as a drain plug, I never really got to use it because of where it's located perfectly in line with the cross pipe for the exhaust. Here you can see one of the clamps where the that broke. This one's stuck in place. I'll probably be able to tap it off, clean it off, and keep it as a future spare. So it's definitely very, very cruddy, very tired. The magnet, I'll move it to the new pan, clean it off first. Happy to see there's not much on it, so that's a good sign. And when I dropped this, there was just a little bit of oil left in it, so the vacuum definitely did a good job of getting all that oil out of the system. Made a whole lot less of a mess than the first few times I changed the oil in this thing. Got the stock bracket and the bar looks like this, all twisted. You can't get the socket on. You're gonna have to do like I've been doing. Put a pry bar in there, twist that little bugger back into shape, or cut. Your choice. Come on, you wanna. Trying to swing a hammer with a GoPro in the way is not what I call easy. That'll work. Can tap it in there, means I can take it out. So there's two options to getting all that oil out of the transmission. Either you play your odds and you drop the pan and you try to catch all the oil. What I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be sticking a vacuum system. So what I've done is I found a hose that is longer than the dipstick. I've actually marked more or less where the dipstick stops with a piece of tape just so that I can make sure that it's at least going further than that. And I'm going to siphon all the fluid out. What I've learned over doing this a few times is that trying to catch it from below is very challenging, very messy. Whereas if you're able to pump it out, it definitely makes your job, your life a whole lot easier. And there, I just saw that the tape went into the tube. So I'm going a little bit further than where the dipstick would stop. I'll connect to the pump and I'll pump out all the fluid. The other thing I've figured out over the years is that you're better off just finding a way to cut off the bolts for the exhaust to catalytic on the passenger side. That way you get a little bit more droop underneath the oil pan, you're able to get the oil pan and oil filter off. And in the process of doing that, the ones on that side broke off. So I'll be going through my parts bin later on, finding 4 bolts, 4 nuts to be able to put those back in. So on the flange side that actually spins on the pipe, they've got these pressed in nuts with threads. So when this was assembled at the assembly line, it was super easy to put this in and out. Corrosion, you know, they're seized, everything snaps. What I found the easiest way to get them out is with a wiper arm puller. You just crank, 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 and eventually it pops out. I don't know if you can tell, but I can see that there's a little bit of a ridge on the perimeter, which means that it's working itself free. I don't know if I can do this one-handed. That's spinning, so I'll have to finish it off, but you can really see it there where it's starting to split. So I just got to do that a little bit more and then repeat on the other one. And this side is ready for new bolts. Success, I got both out. So they've got these little threaded inserts are grooved. So you just got to push them out. So both are out on this side. Yay, super easy. Now on this side, I'm finishing up a oopsie that I did back in 2018 when I used way too big of a bolt. I should have just picked just the right length bolt. Now these are seized. I used the air hammer to punch these out. These, of course, there's just too much vibration, doesn't want to do it. So I'm gonna have to find another creative way to get those 2 buggers out. So now is the time to go rummaging through your bolt bin. Ideally, you're gonna want to use some used bolts and nuts because those are gonna get corroded in no time and you'll never be able to take them off. So just based on the distance between the nut and the bolt, it's roughly 1.25 inches. So as long as whatever bolt you have has threading that is less than that, so you can tighten it correctly, should be good. This is a 3/8 2-inch long bolt. I checked it, it's definitely gonna be long enough. And so last time these are gonna be nice and shiny because next time I have to pull that off, I'll have to cut them off again. At least this time, the inside part is a lot smaller, so it should be a lot easier to get off. Turns out to get these out, I just used an impact in a socket and it free spun pretty quickly, broke all the corrosion, pulled it out pretty quick. So I was able to vacuum out roughly the same amount as when I did the other JKU. So clearly there's a limitation with just the way that everything is accessible. I wasn't able to get the back end up as high off the ground as I was with the other one. Had I rejigged the rear jack, maybe I could have gotten a little bit higher, a little bit more out. But I was able to remove the remaining of the liquid out without making too much of a mess. So I'm going to repeat on this one. Depending what you have at your disposal, I definitely like these carbide T-bits just because of the way that they're designed. They're really compact and you can use them either with a ratchet or with a wrench. So I'm going to need a T30 to get those bolts, those 6 bolts off of the oil pan, transmission oil pan. First time I did it with this little wrench, it worked out really well. Since then I picked up these, and these make life a lot easier, have a little bit more leverage. The only problem there is you want to make sure that you're able to loosen them and not actually snap them off. So right now, this one single bolt out of the 6 does not want to budge. So I could do a few things. Either I could just give her and possibly just snap the head off and end up with the same problem I had on the other one. This time I'll proactively try to use a little bit of heat with the induction heater on the bolt head, see if I can break it free. And odds are it's all this water running down, making its way into the bolt, causing the steel bolt to corrode against the aluminum spacer. So let's get the induction heater in here. If you don't have one and you work on a lot of older vehicles, especially where there's rust, these are amazing. So as you can see, even the spacer is causing all that water to evaporate. I try to go for about 20 seconds to 30 seconds. There's a lot of smoke, so that means whatever crud is in there is cooking. And gotta be careful not to touch that induction tool, because let me tell you, it is hot.
These are supposed to be tightened to like 12 Newton meters, so it shouldn't take much to break them free. All right, I'll give it another round of heat. So there's smoke a little bit everywhere, so clearly it got really hot. Let's try tightening it first. Let's try loosening it now. All right, let's try some more heat. You can hear it sizzling. So I have a lot of these spacers or holders or whatever we want to call them, because I actually got some for the last other Jeep. So it won't be long. I'm going to get frustrated and I'm just going to cut it. The important thing is I don't want to damage the pan and I don't want to crack the housing. Once this little piece is off, it's a lot easier to get the remainder off with the induction heater again than to possibly damage the housing. As I'm twisting on it, I can see the whole bolt and little spacer bracket turning together, which tells me that the bolt is seized inside. So I'm just going to cut this and then I'll deal with the remainder of the bolt. The same problem, or is this gonna bolt finally let go? Whoa, that's not good. There we go. The rest of this I can clean up once the pan is off. So now it's time to get this broken stud out. So back with the induction heater. So you can see that the tip of it was actually red. Let's use some vice grips and see if I can get it to budge. Keep applying heat. I want to make sure that it doesn't snap or crack the housing. Now it's turning. Boom. Now I can get back to what I was supposed to be doing. So this is where the broken piece for the other half of that was located. As a reference, not sure how well you're going to be able to see it, but there's a bit of a hook
that sits here, and it was so corroded that it was literally fused. So with a bit of a cut-off wheel, a lot of patience, flathead screwdriver, a few different size picks, got it out. And here we have the new one. For some reason, the shipping label was stuck on the inside of it, so I had fun cleaning it off, making sure that all that paper was out. Don't want that getting into the new filter. I've got a new grommet that'll go all the way around. So I'm basically at the point of putting this back in and making sure that the 6 little Torx bolts are properly torqued. When you install the oil filter, there's an alignment tab. I'm not sure if you can see it, but right there's a groove. So it slides in, then you can push it up. Done. When it's time to put in your oil pan, make sure your magnet's at the front. Keep an eye with where the openings are, the angles, not the diagonal, which goes at the back or at the front of the vehicle. So then if you pull down on the pipe, slide it in there. And then if you use, let's say, a little pry bar, it'll help you hold it in place as you start putting on all the different bolts all the way around it. So if you end up with some bad clamps, best thing I can tell you to do is go to a U-Pull-It yard. The nice thing is these clamps were used on so many different Mopar vehicles over the years that there's more than likely going to be a few in the yard where you're going. And I was able to get all of these clamps. This is that one oddball that goes in one corner. All the others look like this. The 5 others, I was able to get these for peanuts because I grabbed a few other parts, and for them this was like worth almost nothing as scrap metal. So definitely save yourself some money. As of today, 1 bolt and 1 of these clamps at the dealer, it's over $30 US, over $40 Canadian. Why spend that much when you can go literally pull these off in seconds with the right Torx bit? To make future Eric's life easier, I'm going to use some anti-seize on all these bolts, all the threaded area. Reason is that these are dissimilar metals, so as corrosion sets in, it gets pretty strong. And I don't want to have to relive this nightmare in a few years when I service the oil or filter again. What's important to remember is all these little Torx bolts get torqued to 105 inch pounds, not foot pounds, inch pounds, which is 12 Newton meters. So you should have like a 1/4 inch torque wrench. And what I like is with the little sockets I showed earlier, I can get to the back ones here and torque them. So what I like to do is start in the middle, do the front ones, then tighten up the back ones. Right now I'm torquing them first to 10 Newton meters, and after that I'll go back and I'll finish them up at 12. So now that I'm done changing the oil, let's see how much came out of both. The yellow one, about 4 quarts on the nose. That's between 3 and 4, maybe about 3.75 liters. The white one, it took out a little bit less, so maybe 3.6 quarts, about 3.5 liters. So both have a little bit of a leak. They're supposed to be about 5 liters after an oil change. So what's important is when you fill it is to make sure that you've got the oil level between the correct dots. There's 2 at the bottom for cold, 2 at the top for hot. If you're not sure what to do, just read the dipstick. Like, they've done a really good job of explaining how to test it in neutral, what temperature to have the oil at. So right now I've got the right amount of oil to be between the 2 cold, so I'm going to leave it as is. I'll keep a little bit of oil with me just in case, but that pretty much sums it up. So good luck with your project. Hopefully it goes well, and see you on the next one. Thanks for watching.